Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan. I'm with Neil Dobbs from BigKickoff.com and David Bugle as always. Neil, the top four finished off, rounded up. The only bit of excitement that was there on the day, which is very unusual for a Premier League to end that way. But the top four is done, dusted. I couldn't actually believe. I asked you a question earlier on, and it was an honest question. What match were you watching? I couldn't believe you were watching Liverpool. That game was guaranteed. It was in the bag. But Neil, you can tell me all about it because Liverpool have made it and in third place after the season that they had.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible really to see Liverpool finish third. I mean, let's be honest, we've been saying for 7, 8, 9 weeks now at this stage that it's probably unlikely that they could pull such a kind of a win and run together. Now, by hook and by crook, obviously Alisson's last minute headed goal last week. They've had a serious rub of the green in some of the games. But you still have to give them credit for the way they finished out. Today was more a formality. I don't really think Palace turned up in any kind of gusto about them. They'd one huge chance after maybe 10, 15 minutes when Andros Townsend got in, when Alexander-Arnold squared the ball and got caught. And if he'd have scored, who knows, maybe it would have been a different game. But pretty much after that, Liverpool just kept them at an arm's length. They obviously got a goal in the first half, which settled the nerves. And the reason why I was still watching that game, because you can never take your eyes off Liverpool at the moment until you get that second goal. So once the second goal went in, sure, that was it. Even my young lad went down the road to play a game of ball. He was delighted. We all knew that that was it. So all's well that ends well in that regard.
Dave, again, they were, I think it was something like 7 points off fourth place with, I don't know, or 10 points off with 7 games or whatever it was. It was something that looked like it was going to be a bit of a task. I put out the question there, did Klopp make a bit of a meal of it during the season by constantly playing his best midfielders in that position? Could he have some way changed that? And that, because that seemed to be the biggest focal point where they lost out in midfield. Or was his hands tied, do you think?
No, I don't think his hands were tied, to be honest. Especially... And the reason why I'd say that is because it was January and February. It was literally those 2 months where Henderson was taken out of the midfield. Fabinho was permanently in centre half. And he brought in Kabak and Davies, and they didn't come in straight away. And Henderson obviously got injured. But we had enough centre halves there to put centre halves in centre halves position, simple as that, and bring Fabinho back into midfield because Thiago was still finding his feet and really wasn't doing a hell of a lot. Jones was starting to go back in his shell a little bit, and Wijnaldum was kind of on his own, but also he's a bit torn because, as we now know, he's finished up. So as soon as Fabinho came in for one of the Champions League games, I can't remember which one it was, I think that's when the light bulb went off, and it was like, right, we have to do what we have to do and play centre halves back where they are, bring Fabinho back in. And no surprise, in them 10 games that he's back, they've won 8 and drawn 2 because the balance of the team is roughly back to where it is. Not the quality, but definitely the balance. And by hook or by crook, as Neil said, they got back to front, and that says it all. 8 wins and 2 draws, unbeaten the last 10 games, and that's why they're where they are now. All of a sudden, when you look at it in a year's time, third, not too bad considering what happened. Like, you know, looking back, it won't be a case of just crawling in over the line on the last minute. It'll be probably a C. I'll give him a C. I'll give him a C for the year. But yeah, definitely, I put a little bit of blame on Klopp for not kind of letting the light bulb go off a little bit earlier and putting Fabinho back into midfield because. Yeah, I don't think his hands were tied. I think it was for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, and then that was it.
Yeah, I think there was a time there. He had the players there. He could have changed it. I agree with that. Neil, how do you assess their season? And when you look at the players at the end of the season, there's a bit there. Obviously, Ronaldo, but Salah, there's talk about that he's not overly happy. Mane with the shrug of the shoulders and not shaking hands. Is there something there, or is it just they're upset about what way the league was going this year?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration. I mean, as Dave said there was that period of Christmas or after the Christmas. They were obviously top of the league pre-Christmas, so they were looking good for a stage. Then things began to go wrong. He was playing Henderson, Fabinho, centre half, and they literally lost their way for the guts of 7 or 8 games where they couldn't pick up a home win, which they hadn't lost in like 3 years at home or something crazy like that. It was a very tough time, and at one stage you were even thinking, can they get out of this? Can Klopp pull them out of this kind of crisis? Because it was a crisis, full blown 5 or 6 games in a row lost at home against relegation teams. So to their credit, they kind of pulled that back slowly but surely. They got on. The Champions League, I think, was a big, big help. That game where Fabinho went back into the middle, it's like it was a turning point in the season, because they realised, you know what, whatever about missing playing Fabinho in the back line for that bit of extra kind of security or experience, there was no substitute with having him in the middle of the park where he should have been. And he just had a dynamic effect on Thiago, on Wijnaldum, and he really did well for himself. So overall, I think it's a good way to end the season on that kind of a run that shows, even without, I mean, let's be honest, they've been a little bit ropey in the back line still. They're giving up chances. But to be able to go on a run when you needed it most, it shows a great mentality. And I actually think it sets them up pretty well for next year. They have to replace Wijnaldum, who's been an unbelievable servant. Like, I mean, the games that man plays year in, year out, he's never injured. He plays minute after minute. And that's going to be a very, very difficult thing to replace, more so because the replacements at the moment are Oxlade-Chamberlain, Chiesa, guys that just can't stay fit for 5 minutes, let alone 5 games. So that's going to be a worry. I think he definitely has to replace. He's going to have to bring in quality, because that Liverpool midfield is the engine of the team. And, you know, Henderson may be getting on a year or two, Milner getting on a year or two. They'll need to replace the appearances alone and that kind of mentality.
Yeah. Nathan, Dave, I'll get you to answer this one. Wijnaldum's a big loss for Liverpool. Where does he rank in the best midfielders in the Premier League era? Do you think he's as important as a Gerrard or Alonso?
That's a tough one to put him up against them. Gerrard, no. Alonso, potentially. You know, Alonso was only there for 4 or 5 years, as great as he was, a bit similar to Wijnaldum. But I'll be honest with you, his performances in some of them Champions League games would be more memorable for me than Alonso. He really did put in shifts. A bit like, remember Beckham's game against Greece, where he seemed to be every blade of grass. He was everywhere. There was a couple of games, definitely the Roma one, certainly Barcelona, where he was everywhere, and the protection of the ball and getting out of trouble, and then he done everything. It was both defence and attack. I'll be honest with you, I'll miss that badly, and that's not going to get replaced very easily. So I'd put him up there without a doubt, not with Gerrard, but yeah, I would easily put them in and around the Alonso mark, purely because obviously he's only been here. It's fresher in the mind, but some of his, as Neil said it there, colossal. They really were special performances, and yeah, he'll be duly missed.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting, Neil, just to see who Liverpool bring in, because you have to keep freshening up. I know Van Dijk's going to come back. I know you have your centre backs coming back. But it's just that those positions up front where they've looked a little bit lackluster. Maybe a whole pre-season, bit of rest. Although, you know, there is the European Championships as well, but none of the front three are going to be playing in that, so they're going to get their rest. Although the Copa America is on for Firmino, isn't it? So that may be one. But who would you like to see Liverpool get in?
I think it's a difficult scenario. I think they're going after Konate seemingly off Leipzig. Although I was just reading before I got online there that Leipzig are looking for all the money up front, and Liverpool seem to do these deals where, you know, you pay it over whatever 2 to 3 years in installments. So whether that kind of sticks in the mud a little and they don't get that over the line, I definitely think you need to bring in someone for Trent. You need cover for Trent. They brought in Costas to play left back for Robertson, but Robertson just never misses a game. He's a machine. I think a lot of the defensive issues, it's not necessarily resolved when Van Dijk and Gomez comes back. It depends what type of players they come back as, and can you rely on them? And like Van Dijk was, I think he played every minute of every game last year. So how do you replace that if he gets a knock or if he needs to be pulled out for a rest? But definitely the midfield, you've brought in Thiago. I think he's beginning to find his feet now. You need a Henderson, Wijnaldum-esque type of player to come in there and give you 40 games. And again, they're not easy to find. I don't know what he's going to do with the front three. You can't do a whole lot unless you get rid of one of them. So which one do you get rid of? I know Dave would have watched the game today. Mane looked like he rolled back the whole calendar year today. He was flying on the pitch, but we haven't seen it for the last 15 games. So who do you bring in? The likes of a Son off Spurs, that type of a player, which you probably won't get. Maybe someone that's dynamic, that can swap in instead of Salah, like Jota does. But again, I can't see Liverpool paying top dollar for these players. you're going to have to uncover another kind of a rough diamond like a Jota type player, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it there with Liverpool. Third place, Champions League. They'll have to be happy enough with that. They never probably thought at one stage that it was slipping away from them, so they're probably happy enough with that. Leicester City, though, Dave, will not be happy with how it kind of finished off yet again on the final day. They lose out on the Champions League spot. And to make it even worse, Chelsea go and lose, and they're in a winning position 2-1 and end up losing 4-2, albeit the game seems like they were trashed, but it was one of those games where they were 2-all and they had to chase the game and they just got caught out. But it wasn't just this game, Dave, that cost them, really.
Yeah, we were talking off air, myself and Neil, briefly, and we said it for the last few weeks that, they need to bank a few more points. The last 3 games of the season are going to be pretty big. And if it's squeaky bum time, they could be the ones to suffer. And unfortunately, that's what's happened. The stat, I think, for the last 2 seasons, Leicester have spent the most time in the top 4 than anyone else in the last 2 years.
100 more days than any of the others in the top 4, bar City.
And both times have missed out. So, listen, I would have been a bit more critical about an hour ago, but then on Sky Sports News, they were outside the ground and all the fans literally were like, yeah, very disappointed, but it's our second best ever season. We're in Europe and we won the FA Cup. So it's kind of like when I put my mindset into their mentality, I'd go, yeah, fair enough. But if we just purely look at a purely Premier League basis, yeah, it'd be a bit worrying that you're missing out on 2 seriously good opportunities to make it into Champions League football. And this one would have been worse this year. They were in a much better position with 4 or 5 games to go, and then Liverpool and Chelsea and everyone, it's West Ham started to slip up. So Rodgers in the background will obviously be a bit disappointed, but like I said, I'll kind of put the fans hat on. They'll get over it quite quick considering what happened to them last week. But last game of the season against Spurs, it was set up for them really, and deep down later on when they all sit down and have a beer, we threw it away, lads.
Yeah, Neil, FA Cup final, you win the FA Cup, it's a trophy. They hadn't won it before. Of course you're going to be delighted with that. There has to be that little sense of we wanted that Champions League spot as well, though. They'll still be in Europe and they'll still have a good chance of winning the Europa League because they're one of the big sides. What do they need in their team to push them on to that next step?
I think Leicester are very, very well set up, and unfortunately by missing out in the Champions League, it would have kind of elevated their status that little bit more. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a big, big deal getting in ahead of a Liverpool or a Chelsea, when you're coming through England. So it would have just given them that extra notch. Now, without that, what type of players can you attract? And to be honest with you, Leicester have no problem whatsoever. They seem to find these guys for the 20, 25 million mark, French league players in particular that they've brought in. And these guys just seem to hit the ground running. They've got Castagne come in this year. Their midfield is solid. I think there was a little concern over Vardy that he kind of went on. I know we got 2 penalties today, but there's a little concern that maybe Vardy's powers are beginning to just a little bit slow down. But obviously, they've young blood coming along with him. So I think they need to replace maybe goals from midfield. They lost Harvey Barnes a couple of weeks ago and they didn't seem to recover that dynamicism on the wings. So just to add to their squad quality, I think really proper first team players that could step in there. Because in fairness to Brendan Rodgers, when they got those injuries, he blooded a lot of young kids, which, you got to give him credit for because they came real good from, especially the defending kids came out very, very good from. But they need to bulk up that midfield. They're massively reliant on Tielemans, for example. He plays every minute. So what happens if Tielemans gets an injury? They need a bit more quality off the bench for the centre of the park.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it there. Chelsea scrape in, Dave. I mean, they'll see it as a decent season because they weren't doing so hot at the start of the year. But then neither were City, neither were Liverpool, and they still ended up with a decent season. So Abramovich doesn't take much to let people go, to let managers go. So Tuchel gets a free run now at this year, but next year he's going to be expecting not just to challenge, but to win leagues. Absolutely.
It was very much a minimum requirement getting into the top 4 for them now. They can go it's gas, everything's pointing against them next week, but their season could be pretty special in a funny old world next Saturday. if they do a job on City. That's the ironic thing of it. But just on league-wise, yeah, minimum requirement this year. But yeah, he won't be hanging about next year with the money that they invested. I know they were very much Frank Lampard's players. He'll probably give Tuchel a few quid as well just to help boost her up. So, Abramovich, Lampard didn't get the full season. Tuchel won't either. So, yeah, as you said, it's a free run, but the pressure is on straight away as soon as that game's over on Saturday, no matter what.
Neil, who was a success this year, player-wise and team-wise in the Premier League?
Team-wise, I know I berated them maybe about 2 months ago when I called West Ham a poor West Ham team. So I still don't think they're that good as in, but Moyes really, really has them playing well. Like the confidence to go in, and in fairness to Moyes as well, he came out in front of the cameras and said, "Hey, look, we're here on merit and we're going to attack this 4th place position." He kind of went up in my estimation doing that rather than playing it down and going, listen, whatever happens. So I definitely think David Moyes is up there. Superb achievement this year to get them high as he did and to challenge for that top place, the top 4 places, although briefly. Leeds United for me are another team. The football they play, the way they ran. I was listening to stats in the car on the way to work the other day. The amount of runs they've made, the amount of sprints they've made. People were saying they were going to burn out by Christmas, and here they are running teams ragged. Absolutely run them off the park. So Leeds go up in my estimation hugely this year. There's not many teams that come up from the Championship and really give the top teams, whatever about teams around where they lie, middle of the table. But you ask City, you ask Liverpool, you ask Chelsea, Leeds get them awful trouble in every game.
How can Leeds improve, Neil? Because they don't, and I don't see them do it either. Bring in big name players, so they're probably more likely going to bring in players who are good workers, honest, and Bielsa. So can you see them improving any further than what they have without bringing in the absolute top quality player?
I think so. I mean, the more seasons they can put together playing the way they are, people get used to the system. But I think once they don't drop below them kind of standards, which I don't think they did all season. I know they did a sticky patch there just after the new year, but they got through it and they came out the other side. So he just needs to keep adding to the squad because he does again rely on a core of players. His first 11 would be probably played more than any other 11 in the Premier League this year. But bear in mind, they were without their centre halves. They had awful issues with centre half at the start of the year. They were dropping Calvin Phillips in there, and they played Ayling right back, centre back, right wing. So I think again, once they're more settled and they get these guys back, it'll definitely make them stronger. It just depends what your illusion of where they should be or where they should be challenging. So for the budget that they have, the size of the club after coming up, they've overachieved this year, in my opinion, to be ahead of, your Burnleys and your Wolves and stuff like that. So I don't think they'd be too worried about that. But as you say, they need to add more first team players that they can trust with more games, probably.
Yeah. If you want to send in any comments, do so in Facebook or YouTube. Just send in any comments or questions or anything that's football related. David, manager of the year. Who would you look at as manager of the year? There's a few candidates.
Yeah, you'd throw Rodgers, you'd throw Moyes, you'd throw Bielsa into the hat. But to be honest, I know it's probably easy, but if they win on Saturday, I don't think you can look anywhere else past Pep Guardiola. He'll win 3 out of the 4 competitions, playing without a striker for the last 3 or 4 months. The football that they play, I think it's a landslide. I'm not saying he has to win on Saturday, but if he does, you can't look past him, in my opinion. But I think the others definitely deserve honourable mentions and are right in behind them. Probably Rodgers might be just a little bit ahead of the others, just for as the fans said today, their second best ever season. So, but for me, I would have to give it to Pep, kind of on the basis that they win on next week.
Yeah, Neil, Sean Dyche never gets a mention. He's always in there, no budget. You slate him for the football he plays. But no, seriously, he's no budget at all, really. He has to grab players from the Championship constantly. Leeds are getting slapped on the back for how well they've done, but they've only been in there one season. Dyche is doing it year after year. How he's doing it, I have no idea, but he makes sure his team is well organised, isn't he?
Yeah, listen, the Deutsch method is a perfect method. You had like Tony Pulis, Sam Allardyce, these type of guys that play the same kind of football. Like there's more than one way to win a game, so you can't turn around and say he doesn't get the results. Burnley were hovering above that relegation zone practically for about 6 months, and they never pushed the panic button. It was almost like they knew they had 3 or 4 more wins in them just to pull away, whereas the likes of your Fulhams and your West Broms didn't. So you have to, tip your hat to Sean Dyche. He'll never get the plaudits purely because of the football that he plays, the brand of football that he plays. It's very ugly on the eye. Even Liverpool played them last week, and Burnley's first fans in the stadium, and you couldn't even hear the fans because there was nothing to cheer on. Every time they won the ball, they slapped it forward 70 yards, and it wasn't like they were aiming for a player. It was pretty aimless, just thrown into the wings, and it's hard to watch, so they couldn't get excited over it. But you ask Burnley, would you switch places with West Brom right now, who are going down to the Championship, and Burnley are happy for the budget they have, for the manager that they have, and the squad that they have. Sean Dyche is doing an absolute cracking job, but they're just a victim of kind of poor looking football or poor entertainment, you might think.
Yeah, Dave, I would love to see. You ever see that wife swap that's on the telly? I'd love to see manager swap. I'd love to see Pep Guardiola taking over Burnley and Sean Dyche going to Man City. How good would that be?
That'd be pretty special, all right. That's the age-old question. Like, everyone else is, put him down in the League Two, and would he do a good as job and all that kind of cracking. To be honest, they probably would with the team that they have. They will improve a team, but like, just to go back a little bit, because I didn't want to jump in, but you're talking about what can Leicester do or what can Leeds do to improve, or any of them, or Burnley. Let's be honest, lads. It's nothing else other than the cold hard cash. Really, for Leicester to really get in there, it's spend big, and it's the same with Leeds. This is what happens now with clubs. Like, they'll start to get greedy. Look at Sunderland now; still can't get out of League One. They try to gamble and think they're in that group. You never will be in that group. It's be the best of the rest, and then take the scraps when you get them. Leicester will never be in there consistently. Neither will Leeds, or neither will Burnley, unless they get the billions. So be happy for what they have and don't get greedy, because look at Leeds for 10, 15 years. Look at Villa and be Sunderland. So Leicester need to be very careful and be grateful for what they have, and don't fly too close to the sun. And that's exactly what with Burnley, they're very realistic about it. And as long as they're in the Premier League, they're happy days. So yeah, fair play. And like I said, I'll agree with you guys. Definitely tip the hat to Sean Dyche, that's for sure.
Yeah, just like Liverpool and their one season. Okay.
Oh.
Had to bring it up. Dave, we're going to stick with you. There's a few manager positions up. You've got Spurs, you've got Crystal Palace, and now Wolves. How do you see those three going? Who do you think is going to step into them jobs?
Well, straight away when Santo comes out already, you kind of, the radar comes up going, what's going on here? He must have somewhere, or somebody's approached, and he's announced it now. So he's going to move. That would be shocked if he's not going to be announced within a week or so somewhere. You could maybe speculate Spurs, or is there something more on the continent you wouldn't know? It's very, very interesting there. Palace, there's rumours of Lampard, kind of another London club. You know the basics of the area and what have you. That's the rumours there. Spurs, there's all sorts of going on, but I'd say Santo could be a sneaky favourite now with that decision. Wolves will be interesting, because obviously George Mendes, the super agent, has been very involved there with the helping of bringing in players, and obviously probably knew Santo well. It'd be very interesting if they go in with potentially another Portuguese manager to kind of just keep that kind of momentum going and bring in that kind of talent pool that they've been going into.
Weren't they looking at Conceição from Porto, who's done
exactly. So they'll probably just keep doing what they're doing and bring in some of the best of Portugal, build them up and move them on and get that nice little gravy train going for them. So there you go. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Conceição or somebody of that ilk in Portugal. Santo to Spurs, Lampard to Palace, and I probably won't even be right in any of them.
Neil, if you were Crystal Palace, would you go for Lampard or Gerrard? Let's start that one up again.
Oh, I tell you.
Which one's better?
You know what? Crystal Palace have an absolute massive rebuilding job in their hands. If I was Lampard and Gerrard, I don't think I would go near that club right now. They're not they're in safe hands under Roy Hodgson, But literally everything ends at the end of this season now. You have so many players out of contract. Is it like 10 players or something like that?
Yeah, something
out of
crazy.
contract. So if you go in there and there's a complete overhaul, that is the wrong time to be bringing in a young manager, because big decisions need to be made from top to bottom. You could literally end up having a brand new starting 11 next year, and then you're expecting a Lampard or a Gerrard to put something together. And that's a massive risk, a massive risk. If you're Gerrard, I've absolutely no doubt you're itching to get your time and get your spot in the Premier League, but be very careful how high you aim, I guess, on your first job. You want to be coming in a club. Even like Spurs now, you could pick up the pieces from what Mourinho left. You definitely pick up the pieces from Wolves. I mean, that'd be a smashing job for somebody to get. But Palace, man, I would not touch that with the amount of new faces that they're going to need. They're an aging team, and they're all out of bloody contracts. So what do you do? They've got to wield the axe and completely clear them out. So I wouldn't be going near that.
Yeah, okay. If you have any thoughts, again, send in your comments on who should get those jobs, who you think could get those jobs, and who you'd like to see get them. David, Lewandowski, he set a record over in Germany. I think 50 plus games or goals in all competitions. I think it is. I think it's over 40 something in the league. What do you make of him as a player? And I suppose, is it the league that he should be in?
Yeah, I suppose with the age that he is, I think he should steer clear of the Premier League if he wants to move, because it is the most physical. I'd steer clear of it. If he's going to move, the likely of Paris could be ideal as well. I'd say it'd be a bit similar. But to be honest, up until a couple of years ago, I was never his biggest fan because he was a diving swine, especially when he was in the group against Ireland a few times. He did me head in for the size of the guy. But let's face it, we all know he knows how to put the ball in the back of the net as good as anyone, and his record proves that now over the last few years. He's just got better and better. Now, obviously, he's with a seriously dominant side, but it's a bloody good team, and no matter who you put him with, he knows where the goal is. But, what is he, 32, 33 now, I think he is. Like, he's kind of, don't get too ahead of yourself now and finish on the high that you are. Yeah, maybe a Paris could be ideal. I wouldn't go near Spain, as we all know at the minute. But certainly I would stay clear of England. That's just my opinion. I just think it'd be, when you get to that age and you haven't been there, stay away from it, because not that it'll ruin you, but I'm not saying he won't score goals, but I'd be a bit weary if I was him, if I was advising.
Neil, Lewandowski, he obviously scores goals for fun. Again, is it a big deal, the amount of goals he scored over in Germany? When we look at some of the players, Andreas Silva is second in that goal scoring chart. He has scored 28 goals. When he was at Milan, he played 25 games, scored 2 goals. When he was at Sevilla, he scored 9 goals in 27 games. So not prolific. Andrea Kramich was 4th in that table this year with 20 goals in the Bundesliga. He couldn't even get his game for Leicester. He played 15 and scored 2. You've got Luka Jovic. We all know what happened to him when he went to Real Madrid. I think he scored a couple of goals over there in this time, but he was top goal scorer in Germany for a couple of seasons. Timo Werner, exact same thing, bangs the goals in. Is it a case that this league, the Bundesliga, just isn't a strong league, and if you send anyone over there, they're going to score goals?
Yeah, I think so. Well, look, when you're playing for Bayern, if you can't score 20 odd goals as a striker, you give up football. It's an absolute stonewall certainty. You're going to be multiple chances created every game. I think the big thing here is with the Spanish league, with the Italian league, and with the German league, you have 2 or 3 good teams in each league, and then they really fall off a cliff as far as the standards go. Whereas the Premier League is fairly competitive from top to bottom, as in maybe if you take out Sheffield United this year, most of the other teams are capable of scaring or overturning the results. Maybe not against City, but definitely against most of the rest of them this season. And I think, the German league is basically, you've got Leipzig, who are kind of up and coming. You've got Dortmund, who have been there the last few years, but are hamstrung because they sell all their best players. And then you've Bayern, who are absolutely just head and shoulders above every other person in the league, or every other team in the league. And then what they do is they come to the end of the year, they rob the next best manager, they rob the next best players, and they just rinse and repeat every single year. There's no club in England that could do that. Because, for example, Harry Kane wouldn't be playing at Spurs you just be mopping up these players and taking them all into the best team. So yeah, it's not as competitive, and it becomes a little bit like it's a bit pointless when you're not even judging Bayern based in league titles. It's Champions Leagues and so on and so forth. The bar is so high, no one really cares when you win domestically. Same thing with Paris Saint-Germain. But bear in mind, Lewandowski is still a fantastic forward. He proves it at international level, and he proves it in the Champions League, where Bayern probably went out this year because they missed his goals.
What might have been at Blackburn, huh?
What might have been, yeah.
Just a quick one on that. Just a quick one on that, based on your argument, Roy, and obviously Neil backing up there. Does that mean? Would you say Haaland's all that hot then, if that's the case?
Well, this is something, Dave, that I was thinking about. He only finished third in the charts there, and that's what I was saying. Like Andreas Silva, who couldn't do anything, he's finishing ahead of him. So, Haaland hasn't proven himself in the top leagues either. And when you're talking about the top leagues, I'd love to see him in the Premier League. It's a harder league to do it. Yeah, when you go over to Spain, again, you said already, in Italy, you've said it already, although I think Italy be a little bit harder just because of the defensive way that the teams are structured over there. But yeah, I think he still has a lot to prove. Not that he's not a good player. That's obviously not. Yeah. And just this one came in. Derek McGill, do you think Haaland will sign for a Premier League team? He actually put that in before you even asked the question. So, and I just seen that there. So, Dave, I'll leave that one with you.
There's a lot of rumours in the last week or two that he's going to stay where he is. The only reason why I could see him staying if he's priced out of the market, we've obviously heard the rumours of 20 million for the agent, 20 million for the father, and then the wages and this, that, and the other. So unless the teams can't stop up the cash and Bayern have a fee and they won't accept it, a bit like Sancho last year, they stuck to their guns and said we're not letting him go until we get X amount. And that's the only way I can see him staying at Dortmund. It's just in case he's priced out of it. But if anyone can afford him, it's certainly the Premier League. And if Harry Kane's going, the likes of your Spurs might have to stump up the money to try and get somebody in to fill that void, because that is a massive, massive gap to fill. So
can Spurs take someone like that? I mean, he's not going to go. You look at the money that he's going to
want. But the theory behind it, they should be going for, or they need to get somebody like that if that's the case. And they do have the money, they just don't like to spend it the way they do. Like their revenue streams, if you looked at all the financial stuff that's coming out, like they have the best match day revenue now, if providing everyone's back because of the new ground. So technically the money can be there, or they can take the gamble. But I'd say the Premier League will afford him the best, without a shadow of a doubt. I don't expect him to go to Spurs. I think that's where he could and should probably go, because it's technically maybe a bit of a stepping stone before he really kind of jumps on. Because I don't think City are going to bite at him. I don't think United are going to bite at him.
How about Chelsea?
They could. It all depends on Tuchel, whether he wants to kind of stick to his guns with Werner. But
couldn't see Haaland though, Dave. I couldn't see Haaland going from Champions League back to Europa League or anything like that. No, I couldn't see a backward step. So if he was going to go anywhere in England, it more than likely be the top four.
Well, that's what you expect, all right. But then again, some players go to strange places when they're given the right money, lads. Let's be honest. And he could be one of these. Let's not mess about here. You could scratch your head and go, why is he there for it? I could think of a few million reasons why. And there is certain moves that happen. And watch this space. But I think Premier League will be the most likely option, because they're the most likely to afford them.
Yeah. Okay. Owen Shanahan popped this one up. Gerrard wasn't even the best manager in Scotland this year. Forget him. Owen's a Celtic fan, so we might disregard that comment.
Yeah.
Okay, Neil. We talked about other leagues that maybe not as strong, but Atletico Madrid yesterday won the La Liga title. Real Madrid were down at half time. Atletico were down at half time, losing. Both of them Real Madrid definitely needed to win. Atletico couldn't afford to lose, and they both ended up winning. But Suarez, who was too old for Barcelona, isn't too old for Diego Simeone, because he can turn any player into a monster, and he's done the exact same thing here.
Yeah, Simeone has a track record with this, doesn't he? He took in Costa, Griezmann. He's made these guys giants. There's just something about the way Simeone gets into these players' heads, the way he gets into his team's heads, and he just has them trucking on like a machine. They're not the most attractive team to watch at times. They can be fairly dour, but my God, they dig out results. So it's been what, seven years, is it now, since they've won? I'm kind of delighted to see him. I mean, you have to take advantage of the fact that Barcelona are a little bit of a mess this year, but Madrid are a well-oiled machine and they know how to win. So to go down to the wire and to go like that, the irony obviously is with Barcelona, they get rid of Suarez. He clearly didn't want to leave at the time. What did he get? 21 goals this season is absolutely a phenomenal return. So he's 34 years old. They thought, right, a little bit like Aguero now, they thought, let's ship him out. He's had his best days. And for him to come back with 20 goals this season and secure a league title, the first league title in 7 years, is absolutely special. Now, obviously, there's more than just a Suarez story here. But Simeone is one of these kind of competitors. He's just a beast. He's as competitive on the sideline as he used to be on the pitch. So, yeah, I like to see him do well there and to break up the big two. And seems to be well deserved this season.
Yeah. Real Madrid, there's talk of Zidane going. Then I seen talk in the paper the other day that he was getting the budget and who he was going to be looking for. We're not totally sure if he's going or if he's coming. And then there was talk of Carlo Ancelotti going back in and taking that job. And you look at Everton. Everton eventually finished 10th in the league, although it was only a matter of a few points away from. Would he go back? I couldn't see it. But again, if Zidane leaves, where does Zidane go?
I don't think who knows? He didn't really go anywhere when he left the first time. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the type that'll just gladly drift away. I can't see him with another club. I think it's one of these. Yeah, I'll do it at Madrid. It's because I think he was on. Wasn't he the technical director at one point? Or I'm not like he'll probably be a job for life kind of thing at Real Madrid, I think, or he'd disappear for a year or two and end up back up in the boardroom level or something like that. So I just can't see him anywhere else. I just don't think he's one of them. He's a bit French, like a bit Cantona, you know, when he finished early. Zidane would be like, yeah, I've done my stint. I've won a few titles. Good luck. Thank you. Au revoir. So if I was Ancelotti, I wouldn't touch it if that's the case. Like there's rumours of a budget, obviously, and the Spanish league, you just don't know. Like I'm trying to get away from Real Madrid for a split second because Barcelona, it's a fire sale. Everyone must go. Potentially bar Messi. I'd say it's going to be something similar with Real Madrid. I think Modric is up on a free. I think I'm not 100% certain on that, but they're obviously going to have to tidy up and freshen up their team as well. So it's it just epitomizes what happens in Spain when you look at the two lads, both Barcelona and Real Madrid. They're the biggest revenue makers. Like they're the two richest clubs for revenue year on year. They bring in $750 million each, over 100 million more than Bayern Munich, and nearly 200 million more than the two Manchesters. And they're in the position that they're in. Somebody put up a stat. The front three of Braithwaite, Dembele, and Griezmann, they cost something like 280 something million, and it only cost like 7 million for Suarez. And look at the difference in the season this year. Like that's the reason why they're in the position they're in. They've been very careless with their money, but it just beggars belief that the situation that they're in. There's rumours of a 500 million loan that Barcelona are getting just to try and paper over the cracks. It's just a mess with that the two of them are in, and they deserve it all considering the money they bring in. They shouldn't be in this position. They should be dominating over the rest of them, but they've just been careless with their money. And personally, ego managers will go there and think they can do it, but sensible managers won't go near them. If that was me.
Yeah, Ronald Koeman, Neil, is really disappointed with the way the board have backed them at Barcelona. I'm not sure if any manager goes in there, they're going to get exactly what they want. There's talk of Depay going in there, and they're already talking about players coming in. So it doesn't look like a manager. He is a coach. That's it. You're a head coach there. Yeah. And they haven't always brought in the best of players now. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying I'm kind of delighted, but there is a certain irony. If you go back 10, 15 years in the Premier League, when Barcelona used to just come in and go, oh, there's your star player, we want him. And there was a narrative that was almost accepted at the time, which was as soon as Real Madrid or Barcelona come calling, that guy is gone. So what happened was then Neymar moved for big money. It changed the whole world of transfers. And Barcelona and Real Madrid then, instead of buying 2 and 3 of these guys for 50 million, they had to go and spend 100 million or 120 million. And what happened was clubs got clever and they sold these guys to Barcelona and Real Madrid. Absolute duds. Look at Philip Coutinho. look at Dembele, look at Griezmann, look at Hazard. 100 million players, every single one of them, and they're not worth the paper it's written on right now. They cannot get these guys off their books. They won't move anywhere else. No one else can afford them. Coutinho bounced over to Bayern and then came back, and I think Barcelona were still paying like half his wages. Like, it's incredible the waste that they've done over the last few years. And they only, as Dave said, they only have themselves to blame, the ego to go after and target these big guys and then pay way over the top odds. And they got burned, and they got burned very badly, and it set Barcelona back probably 5 years now.
Yeah. If you have, again, any comments, hit that like button as well. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. But if you have any inkling of what you think that Haaland should do, that Mbappe should do, send in a comment there, post it in, and we'll talk about that. And I'm going to start on that one with you, Dave. Mbappe. So there's a lot of talk about him, but no real talk apart from the Real Madrid thing, which every big player gets.
Yeah.
Do you see him going to Real Madrid?
Before this season, you'd say, yeah, there's every chance that it'd be a race between them two, but it's the same again. It's probably all down to the money. Like, he is potentially the next megastar behind to take over your Messi and Ronaldo. Their stars are fading, whether we like it or not, and we will be obsessed with trying to find the next in line. And he's probably the favorite at the moment. So whoever wants him has to literally steal the crown jewels. It's as simple as that. He is He has the potential to be massive, and he will be priced massive. So everyone's going to have to spend. Well, I don't know what's the record. 170. Like, they'll have to match whatever Neymar was, even though that's silly and it's bonkers. But that's the only way it's going to happen. Now, the Spanish clubs are obviously mad enough to do it, and so is Real Madrid. I'd like to think there's obviously it's more of a love affair. There's been a lot of respect towards Klopp, so us Liverpool fans like to kind of flirt with it and say he'd be great there and we'd all love him, but we won't afford him. We will never spend that money. I'd be shocked if he ended up there. But somebody like Real Madrid would be crazy enough to break the bank for him. But that's basically the be all and end all of it. Is who's willing to push the button and send that money across, because it will be mega.
Just touch on Manchester United, Neil, because everyone's been talking, they've made great improvement under Solskjaer, which you can't deny. They've made improvements under Solskjaer. For me, I believe they need to sign a top centre forward. I think Cavani is a great player. I think if he's a little younger and you think, well, he mightn't get an injury, but there's always that thing. If he goes out injured, you're stuck with what you had before. So I still think that they need a big player. I think it's an Mbappe, a Haaland, someone like that. What do you think? What do United need to actually compete?
Yeah, I think hit the nail on the head there. So since Lukaku left United, they haven't had that proper centre forward, the 20 goal a season guy. These are basically missing, and obviously Harry Kane would be the answer to that. You're missing a guy that will get you 20, 22 goals every season, but not just get them when it matters. The big name player, the guy that comes up in the big games, the derbies and stuff like that. And they just haven't had it in so long. Rashford and Martial, Martial kind of deceived a little bit where you thought yourself, wow, he's beginning to come good, and then he regressed twice as quick as he did. So, like, as a Liverpool supporter, I really would not like to see Man United get Harry Kane, because I think that answers a lot of your questions. They probably need a right winger as well, because they keep messing around with this, pushing Rashford over to the right. He's not as comfortable over there. They ship Pogba out there sometimes. They definitely need, as Matty's saying there, they need a centre-back, a better quality centre-back with Maguire. They need a right winger that would be a starting 11 right winger. But most for me, they need a guy that's going to stick the ball in the net. So the Harry Kane, the Haaland type of player would be a dream signing for Man United this year.
Yeah, Matty also gives us the names of the players he'd like to see at United. So we'll have a look at them. Declan Rice,
you can have
Varane,
him.
Sancho,
can have
Kane.
him. You can have him.
I'm going to say I'm not getting the Sancho thing. I don't get it. I haven't seen. I've watched a lot of German football since we all became experts on German football when they were the first ones to come back from the lockdown, and I've watched a lot of German football since. I just don't see Sancho being the man there. I like Greenwood. I think Greenwood does a good job. He cuts in. I don't think Greenwood is a centre forward. Not yet, anyhow. I don't think he's big enough, strong enough. I think he does well coming off the right. I'm not saying Sancho's not a good player. I just don't know if he's the one. I think
he's not 100. He's not 120 million player. That's for sure.
No,
like you're not spending 100 million. If you pick Sancho up for 40, 50 million, you'd make your peace with that.
Of course you would. Kane, Varane. Again, Varane a few years ago. I'm not so sure with Varane now, but Varane would be better than Lindelof at the moment. And you're seeing now, Dave, how important Maguire is, even after all the slagging he's got, how much he was and all that sort of stuff. He's actually been really, really important to Manchester United.
Yeah, somebody hit the nail on the head. One of the co-commentators last week saying Harry Maguire's getting better the less he plays. You know, it's gone up and up and everyone misses it. Listen, it's been funny to hear United fans the last week or two lamenting what it's like to miss the centre half when they took great pleasure in us. So now you know what it feels like. You know, it's that big of a position. It's that big of a loss. I'm a fan of Harry Maguire. I think he's a great defender. I think he's probably, like I said it before and I'll say it again, like he'd been a better 15 years ago. I think he's that old school kind of, he uses muscle, used his power a bit better, because the modern game, he's just that half a yard behind sometimes when it comes to the kind of the modern day football and centre half. But he's a top defender and there's no two ways about it. And it's been obvious for the last 3 or 4 games. So he needs a partner, a proper true partner, because as soon as he was gone, they became very ordinary in the back line again. Because with Wan-Bissaka, I still scratch my head over him. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. I really don't. I just don't. And people say he's a good defender, and I actually question his defending. They all talk about going forward. I couldn't care less what he does going forward. I don't get him defensively either. And maybe it's because of the backline centre-half partnerships that make him look a bit more vulnerable, a bit like when with the centre-half pairings like at Liverpool. Shaw's done very well this year, but definitely he needs a top centre-back, centre midfielder, and a centre forward, spine straight through the middle. And I'm going to be a bit bold as well. Maybe not that next season, but the season after, you're probably going to have to go and buy a keeper. There, I said it.
Okay. James Smith says, if United need a centre back, how about Cody from Wolves now?
You can have him.
Yeah, he's a good player. I don't know if he's top bracket. I don't know. I do like him. I tell you one thing, he'll give you his organisation. He'll give you leadership. You know, he really is pivotal to Wolves in the way they play. He's very good on the ball. He can play and spray some lovely long balls. It would be a big step up, I think, going to a club of that stature from Wolves. And I don't know if he has that in him to be, you know what I mean, the next jump up in quality. It would be interesting to see. It depends what maybe price you got him at. I do like Cody, but I don't know whether I think he'd be a Manchester United centre half.
If you were going to take a punt and try and take a punt on longevity, I'd quicker go for somebody like Fofana over Cody. Like Cody's a plaster a year or two, and plus I don't think, like the way you look at it is, can you see him lifting the Premier League trophy? Let's be honest. No matter what jersey he's in, can you see somebody at his got? No. It's like when Fellaini went there, and I said it to the lads, as long as he's there, you won't lift the trophy. There's certain players that need to lift you up to that level, and Cody will just be exactly what they are now, in my opinion. But Fofana might be a bit of a gamble for a bit of longevity, and could be that kind of young, energetic centre half beside Maguire, and that could be a nice little partnership. So that'd be my little bold move if you're going to take a punt, instead of trying to go the old has been, because he's not really yet, Varane or even Cody for that matter. Maybe a young up and coming to go beside Maguire, who seems to have matured quite well now at United, and he could be the nice little the anchor to help build up a guy. So that'd be my little tip for you.
Okay. Lukaku has had a good season with Inter Milan. They've obviously won Serie A. All of a sudden now he is one of the best centre forwards in the world. I actually liked him when he was with Manchester United. I liked him when he was with Everton. I didn't see the reasoning for letting him go from Manchester United, apart from Solskjaer said he wasn't going to suit his style. So you go, okay, that's your, prerogative to let someone go if you don't think it's going to fit in your system. I always thought he was a good player. Did I think that he was going to go on and win the team leagues? There was a big question mark over it. He's done it over in Italy. That's fine. Ronaldo, there's talk of Ronaldo leaving Juventus this year. So, Dave, Ronaldo and Lukaku, if they're leaving, although I think Lukaku will stay for another season, but if they leave, where would you see them going? Who could take them and actually prosper?
Ronaldo is it'll be a bit like the Eagles. Do you know the band, the Eagles? They did about 22 farewell tours. Whoever wants to take him, that's all it is. You're sacrificing your team if you take him in. Look at Juventus. The team has been sacrificed because they got him in, and that's what will happen. So if United get him, good luck to his lads. He's gonna have him. It could damage the team more so than improve it. So go off to America, in my opinion. If somebody takes the gamble, that's grand. It's to make a few quid. It's to sell a few shorts. He's still a great player, of which there's no denying it. But he'll cost you a lot of money, and there's a show that comes with it. Apparently, the cars are already in the truck and they're gone. Literally the same truck that brought them over to Turin, they already came the night after the game. He's long gone. So where they're gone to, I don't know. But top sides need to get over it now, and it's a bit like Messi as well. They need to get over it, in my opinion. It's time to start looking for the next in line. I know that might sound a bit harsh, but it has to come at a certain point in time, because with these guys, they'll be wanting the money that the 25-year-olds and 26-year-old up and coming superstars want, which is mega bucks. And for me, clubs and everything we've given out about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it's everything that's wrong if these clubs go in and go after these type of players. So if you're going to go for somebody, it'd be a Lukaku at the very least. But with Ronaldo, thanks for everything you've done. But yeah, maybe off to America for him, because I think it's a big gamble whoever takes him.
Neil, in agreement, off to maybe Inter Miami with Beckham. Is that no big team in Europe will touch him?
I couldn't see anybody touching Ronaldo now. I know, as Dave says, you'll probably get a lot of money back in merchandising and fees. It can probably be balanced. But I think he is definitely on the decline. I think he is a massive gamble for the way you want to play your football. Can you afford to carry a guy in the field anymore? You really can't. You just can't afford these guys that are only on the pitch to score, as crazy as it sounds. Look at Harry Kane, look at Mbappe, even look at Neymar. For all the crap that Neymar puts you through, he still works his socks off on the field. So you can't have a passenger anymore. And Juve have found it a little bit to their detriment that everybody else has to work 10 times as hard to allow one guy have a kind of an easier time. Barcelona have certainly found that. Sure, Coleman come out and said everyone has to work an extra 10% to cover for Messi. So these two guys are giants of the game. I don't want to see it end where they just go somewhere hoping rather than expecting that they're going to do something again. For Ronaldo, this could be the end of the line if he can't get another season out of him. So, yeah, we wait and see.
Okay, lads. Interesting. An end of an era for the Messis and Ronaldo. Aside.
To be honest, for me, Ronaldo should stay clear of the Premier League, in my opinion. I don't think if he got 20 goals, great. But look at the team that he's with by the end of the year. That'll be the big thing, because I don't think they'd be in the position that people might think they are. And fuck it, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I believe. I think it's time to be serious about your future, your club, instead of a quick fix.
Yeah, it's a certainty now. Paris Saint-Germain will get them both, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Neil, thanks very much. Dave, thanks very much. Everyone who was watching, thanks very much again. Spread the word.
Last question. Sorry, Roy. Yeah. Last question. Let's be honest, just in case, because I don't know if we're going to be on. Who's going to win the Champions League next Saturday?
Oh, yeah. Well, we might do something on that during the week.
Before, all right.
Okay.
Well done, Dave.
Fair enough.
Talk to you soon. Thanks very much.
Later.
Cheers, lads.